Hi, I'm Dave Epstein and welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom. Today we're talking about problems that crop up on some newly planted trees. So all is not perfect here at Growing Wisdom, that's for sure. We put in this Sunspire magnolia this spring. It doesn't really look that good. As a matter of fact, I'm not 100% sure what's going on with it, but I have my suspicions. You may have planted a newly planted shrub or tree and it's not doing well. And what do? I can tell you what not to do. There's also just a little bit of luck with some of these things. So we planted this correctly. I know that. It's at the right depth. You can see the flare down there. It's not too deep. But what I think may have happened is the soil got too wet. So why do I think that? Well, let's take a look at what's going on. Notice the leaves. They're very small. So the leaves should be about 3 or 4 times this size. We still have some growth up at the top, which thank goodness is at least some green on this tree, so it's not dead yet. But some of these leaves have really yellowed. So look at this leaf here, quite yellow. Why do I think this is over, not underwatering? Well, the leaves that are green are nice and turgid. What do I mean by that? They're not drooping. If the leaves were drooping, I'd be a little more suspicious that this might be underwatered. What else do? Well, I get down and I check. So if I dig down, and you don't want to dig down away from here because remember there's a root ball that was planted. And as I dig down and I look at the soil and I pull up some of that soil, this is the soil that was part of the root ball and that is moist. I can clump that together. I can feel the moisture in there. So this plant is not suffering from lack of water. Well, if it's not lack of water, it might be too much water, and that can be a problem. Why? Well, when you plant a new tree, the most important thing this can do is put out new roots. I don't necessarily care that it has a lot of new growth. I want the roots to really be going on down in the ground. That's what's going to sustain it through the upcoming winter. A lot of new growth up top may not necessarily mean that the tree is going to survive. So here's what you don't want to do at this point. Number one, do not fertilize it. A tree that's in decline or suffering or stressed out does not want more food. Leave it alone. Don't water it more. It has enough water. If I put more water in here, the roots may rot. It may not send out new roots. If you found the soil was really wet, you could dig around it and replace some of that soil with a drier soil, but be careful not to get too close to the existing trunk because if there are new roots, you don't want to disturb them. So another thing you can do is I've got this soil moisture meter and you can basically get that in the ground, and what I notice is that's up to an 8 or a 10. That's pretty high. That's telling me there's plenty of moisture in there and not to add any more. Another thing you can do is scratch the bark a little bit, and if it's green underneath, then at least we know that this tree is still alive. I notice that that still has some nice green to it. At least I know there's still healthy tissue. Beyond that, it's a little bit of waiting. Sometimes a tree like this could linger for 1 or 2 or even 3 years before it really gets a chance to flush out a nice thick bunch of new growth. The other thing I'll start to look for are new buds. Now I don't see any yet. It's still the middle of July. I should begin to see some buds for next year over the next several weeks. That's a good sign. If I start seeing tiny little buds, then I'll know that this is at least going to make it through the winter and flush out new growth next year. But again, don't water, don't feed, don't play with it too much, certainly don't dig it up. Know that sometimes this can happen, and a little bit of patience can go a long way. For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.